Hello, friends. This is Paragir, your host on Stay Strong podcast. Thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. It's my promise to bring you the world class information in the field of kettlebells, kettlebell sport, and strength and conditioning. Today, we have a guest from Miami, Florida. Her name is Cintia. Cintia originally is from Argentina. She migrated to America 20 years back. She works in a bank and simultaneously also do the kettlebell sport. She's been competing now for a few years. She competed, her last competition was in Hungary, WKSF World Championships, where she got rank 1, lifting 16 kilos biathlon. We are going to understand her training program, her nutrition, especially how does coach trains her to quickly get into the competitions, plus her output about the results, what she's getting in a shorter period of time is what we are going to learn today. Guys, please help me welcome Cintia from Miami, Florida. Hey guys, this is an effort to promote kettlebell sport in India. So please like, share, comment on this podcast so that the podcast will be able to reach to maximum number of the people in India and the sport will get promoted. Thank you very much. Hello friends, welcome back to Stay Strong podcast. We have Cintia from Miami, Florida. Over to you, Cintia. Please introduce yourself, your background, about your professional and fitness background.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So professionally, I work at a bank. I've been there for 17 years. Okay. And I do succession planning, so helping clients what to do with their assets after they die, how they want to leave it to their children. So using trust and other mechanisms. And kettlebell, I started 2 years. 2 years will be my first competition that I first competed with 8 kilograms.
Okay.
Before that, a few months before I had started doing Kettlebell Fitness, a friend invited me to her sister's house. It was, we're talking about end of 2020, December 2020, where it's still the pandemic going on. A lot of the gyms are closed. So yes. This was an outdoor fitness class that was done at 6:20 a.m. in the front lawn of her yard. And a few people would come and do kettlebells outside. And I liked it because it was very efficient. It was, a 30-minute class, and I was exhausted the rest of the day. I could really feel it. And before that, I had used a little bit of kettlebells at home, just doing some home videos, but mostly using kettlebells, to do squats and other exercises, not doing, kettlebell sport. So December 2020 is when I first take those kettlebell fitness classes that are introduced, what snatches, what jerk is. Okay. I was very bad at it. I couldn't.
Okay. So
my technique was horrible.
Okay. So that was your first introduction to kettlebells. Now, who introduced kettlebells to you? Was it one of your coach, or you just
so this friend that invited me to this class, she's the first person that talked to me about kettlebells, but it's my current coach that did that class. So he's the one that brought me from doing kettlebell fitness to kettlebell sport. I was going about twice a week to this class in the morning, and only doing about 10 pounds at that point. I couldn't do the double dip with jerk. It was very difficult for my brain to grasp, but I kept going. Something kept me going. And then during the summer, I took a few weeks off. I did some surfing, kiteboarding. And when I came back, it seemed something clicked in my brain, using like practicing in other sports help develop the skills for kettlebell. So when I came back, I actually could do the technique. I could do jerk. So he mentioned a competition that was around August of 2021. And I signed up, and that's how kind of this journey started. Once I completed that first competition is when I started seriously training kettlebell sport.
Okay, Cynthia. Can you give me your background about fitness? Were you any kind of in a fitness activity in your school days, college days, probably in your working days? A little brief about your background of fitness.
I would say it's just more, going to some group fitness classes, a gym, playing a little bit of tennis, nothing very serious. Before the pandemic, I had been training about 3 years. I had 2 kids, and I ended up with C-sections for both of them. So, my core got affected. So I did 3 years where I kind of dedicated, to bring my core back to working functionally. So
Okay.
I worked with a coach that I did isometric exercises using a machine called IsoFit.
Okay.
So I will go, during my lunch hour. It was also, I liked it because it was 30 minutes. Very also, if I like efficient workouts that I have limited time, so I have to be able
Okay.
to do them. So I did that for 3 years, but then the pandemic came and the gyms closed. So I stopped doing that, and I started kind of doing some home videos during that time. On and off, I also did yoga for some time as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually started your fitness activity in 2020, or you had kind of little
Well,
background work?
I did yoga classes. I went to the gym, but I never seriously trained as an athlete before. Not until I started with kettlebell.
Okay, so your first exposure to kettlebells was in 2020. So it's like 3 years you've been training.
Yes, but I will say the first 8 months were kettlebell fitness only. I didn't
Okay.
start with kettlebell sport until about 2.5 years.
Okay. Now I wanted to understand how challenging it is, because see, you really do not have a quite huge fitness background in comparison with
Yeah.
some of the athletes to whom I've spoken to. But how challenging it is for you to get into the kettlebell competition. So what were the challenges you have seen in the past year or so when you're actually getting to a little professional level when you're lifting kettlebells? Because 8, 12, now you're getting 16. So how do you describe that? Like, what are the challenges you have seen?
Well, for me, the hardest is, working with the technique. And when you first, for example, snatch, when I first started doing snatch, in my mind, it seemed very easy. Once you get to know what snatch is, there's so much intricacies to it, and there's so many things to learn that I'm
Yeah.
still working on technique. I think once my technique gets much better, it might be much easier. For example, jerk, I'm still only doing 12Ks.
Okay.
I haven't advanced to 16. I can do a few minutes, but I cannot do a 10-minute lift with 16. So it's working on technique. Breathing to me is also an issue. Like making having the breath at the right time, because that also affects your lifts.
Yes.
In terms, I think I'm always have been auto motivated. I don't necessarily need outside motivation to keep going, and I just seeing the accomplishments along the way has kept me going. And definitely having a competition to be training for is a big motivation to
Okay.
work for the next goal.
Okay, so that was the technique thing which you're talking about. That's almost pretty obvious for many newcomers. But when it comes to the system, like when it comes to the cardiovascular system, strength system, flexibility, did you find any challenges in this area? Because especially after 40, when women or a man, even men, well, we talk about women, when we start, then you find some of the other challenging, probably challenges in the cardiovascular system because you're not trained, probably lifting the weights overhead because you're not doing strength training, probably tighter posterior chain because hamstring, glutes, or probably the upper back. So did you find any challenges in this area?
Well, cardiovascular actually saw a big improvement. I have never liked running, and after doing kettlebells, I can now do a 5K and actually do it. Before that, I will usually I will do 5Ks, but I will do half walking, half running. So I actually have seen improvements in those aspects. In terms of flexibility, I do go to a chiropractor, about twice a month, where he uses a special method that he rolls the muscle, uses a big metal roller to roll the muscles, and helps out in that aspect. But I don't see any limits in those things to have kept me from going on. I think along the way, I run into issues. I mean, for example, I tend to have my stress in my shoulder, so yeah, sometimes I don't have my best day lifting because I feel it when I go overhead or certain movements with the snatch. So kind of working through that. Maybe that day train a little bit lighter, but nothing that I have felt that has kept me from going on.
Super, great. How much time do you train with kettlebells for kettlebell sport specifically in a week, in hours?
an hour. So I train 3 times a week.
Okay.
Usually Tuesdays, Thursdays, on Sundays. This week I had to change it up a little bit just because of work and timing and family. It also not always work out. Sundays is my favorite day because that's the one I can really take my time and maybe stretch a little bit more. So those days I might be at the gym for like 2 hours or a little bit more. The other days maybe an hour 15 and an hour and a half, just depending on what the training is for that day.
3 times a week, typically 3 times a week. Now, does this training have exclusively kettlebell sport training, or do you have a mix of strength training and cardio in this? That's my first question. Second is, how much time do you train on the other days? So total time of training.
So the biggest aspect of the training is kettlebell sport related. So there's usually some warm up with the kettlebells, then some jerk sets, a break, and then some snatch. And then my coach always also gives me some general, preparation, fitness preparation. And in there, sometimes it varies. For example, the workout I have for this week, I have to do some kettlebell farmer's carry. Okay. And then I do like 2 or 3 of those, and then I run 6 or 8 times. I don't remember the exact. So there's a little bit of mix, but sometimes it's doing bench presses and push-ups and burpees. So it's a little bit of mix. He knows my weaknesses, so he tries to get me to cover those. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as you know, as our age progresses, sometimes our efficiency to train effectively drops. It goes on dropping unless you're really training up to the mark. So how do you take care of those things? Do you have any kind of mind training strategies or the planning if your coach is giving, or do you have it by yourself if you're doing that?
Yeah, well, in my experience, I haven't seen a drop in the training. As I have aged, it actually has gotten better. Like my performance has improved since I started a few years back. So right now my mindset is I can do it. I can keep on improving. And something that you see with other kettlebell in kettlebell sport, when you go to, for example, competitions, you do see people into their 60s still competing 10-minute sets. So in my mind, age is not a factor. It's not an impediment to keep going.
Absolutely. How has kettlebells and kettlebell sport helped in your daily living? Well, there are 2-3 things for this. First is your daily living activities, probably moving around with the children, taking their studies, or probably moving around them. They can be cranky at times. Then secondly, it might be your sleeping pattern. How has it helped? Third would be your generally physical wellness inside outside. How is that kettlebells helped you?
Well, like I mentioned, for example, my cardiovascular health, I think, improved a lot. I mean, I can run that I couldn't really do before I started kettlebell. It's just overall mindset, I think, helps. I mean, you can see how you can overcome, being in the platform for 10 minutes with those kettlebells is something hard. I've had situations, for example, that I see my reps aren't being counted and you're fighting, should I just let go and not do this or keep going? And I think that also passes on to your daily life. Sometimes you struggle with things and you can fight that and keep going, right?
Yes. Okay, super, great. What is your biggest challenge while lifting kettlebells on the best day?
On the best day? Sometimes I will say, balancing time, right? Their work, family, and having time to do kettlebell. Once I make the time to do it. Once I'm there,
especially like you're doing a 10-minute set, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. So when you're doing a 10-minute set, what challenges do you find in the entire 10-minute set, starting or the middle phase or the last phase, or how do you manage? Because some people are very good at, and some people are really waiting for the 9th minute because they want to sprint. So some people find it very challenging in the middle set. So in your case, how it is?
So in 10-minute sets, I really like to separate it into 1 minute. Don't think about the whole 10 minutes. So I'm usually counting minute by minute. So let's say I'm doing 12 reps a minute. I count the 12 reps and then I go on and count the next 12. I don't count up to 24 or 36. that will be horrible in my mind. Just 1 minute at a time. And I think every time that I thought about it 1 minute at a time, especially in competition, it has to work out for me. It's sometimes at the gym where you're not as concentrated because you have more stuff dealing on with your life. You're not in the bubble of the competition. Yeah, I will say I haven't done it many times. I have come to situations where I just put the kettlebells down and I just keep going. For example, I went on vacation right before, about a week before a competition, and I was able to train one day there, and I was coming back on a Sunday, and I was planning on training here, but my flight got delayed. I was tired, so I get to the gym at 6 o'clock. I'm the only one there, so sometimes, also the motivation of having people around also helps you to keep going. And I did it 1-2 minutes, and I just couldn't do it. So it's kind of like, okay, I was like, what am I doing here? I was going on a work trip the next day. I had to, prepare stuff for that. So I was like, okay, I think it's just better if I just let it go and leave and do it better at my next training. So
okay. Do you also do strength training, including squats, deadlifts, bench press, good mornings, something sort of like that with barbells and dumbbells? If so, what are those exercises?
Yeah, when it's I don't have something I do on a weekly or daily basis. Whatever my coach assigns as a PP. So sometimes it's deadlift, sometimes it's squats, and sometimes it's other exercises. In my house, when I'm not training at the gym, I do have a few kettlebells here. To me, like, daily mobility is the most important. So finding ways to move naturally, right? So not necessarily forcing the movement. For example, one thing I have done in my house, I have gotten rid of chairs and couches. So like when I work, I sit on the floor. So that naturally makes you get up and do squats naturally. Okay. I have a kettlebell, and sometimes I'll do a few swings. When I see it, I have a small trampoline, and sometimes I'll jump a little bit there. So it's not forcing something, it's kind of trying to do it naturally in your daily life. And I think also walking is also very important to keep your body moving.
Yes. Okay. Wow, nice. Now, with the training, simultaneously nutrition is also very important, because that's like the key thing, because that's the fuel what you get for the training. How is your nutrition place? Like, do you take any supplements? If so, if you're taking nutrition, are you vegan, vegetarian, or do you eat non-vegetarian? And what kind of supplements do you take? If you can just highlight on all those things.
Yeah, so nutrition has been very important part of my life. Even before kettlebells, I made a big switch in my diet about 7-8 years ago, that I eliminated gluten and dairy, and my focus is on non-processed foods, vegetables, fruits, and high quality meats. So grass-fed beef, wild salmon, pasture-raised chicken. So in my meals, I think, to grow muscle, especially as you age, protein is a very important factor. So prioritizing protein in my meals and high quality protein. Supplements, there's nothing I'm taking right now. Sometimes if I take some vitamin D or B12, but that varies. I don't have a strict regimen.
Okay. So during the competition, do you take any supplements? For example, something for recovery, or maybe something to boost your efficiency? Is there anything which you can recommend, or is there anything which you're taking in particular? Like, for example, many women take creatine also. So do you take creatine? Do you take glutamine? All these supplements, it's important when it comes to any kind of extreme sports, but do you take personally?
I don't take it personally right now. I did. Right before World Championships, I did do a month of creatinine just to test it out. I'm not sure if I saw a difference or not. Right now, I'm not taking it. What I do take, for example, when I'm competing in biathlon between my jerk and snatch set, I always bring some dates. Like I said, I don't like processed food. So some people take sugar gummies or stuff like that. I bring some dates, and I take that as a kind of boost.
Okay. Wow. Cynthia, any kind of negative experience about kettlebells, or maybe if you have any kind of injuries while doing kettlebells, if you want to share that, if you have any.
One of the things I liked the best when I started kettlebells is I didn't feel so sore after I worked out, because I've been, I've tried going to a gym and sometimes the next day you can't move at all because you overwork your muscles so much that you're very sore. I don't typically get that from Kettlebell Sport. I might get it from the GPP I do after, but no Kettlebell Sport. So that's one of my favorite things about kettlebell. Like I mentioned, that my shoulder is like my weakness. So I've had, I don't know if necessarily it's due to kettlebell, but probably the overtraining kettlebell with what my weaknesses are, threw my shoulder off a little bit. So I had to slow down at the beginning, and it hasn't happened for a while. I also ripped my hands a few times. So that I had to switch my training up by using gloves, for example, until my hands were healed. Your hands definitely change using kettlebells. I mean,
yes,
you have calluses, so that's
okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Have you trained yourself, only yourself, for any competition or for any kind of event, and how it is you training with a coach? So I want to understand the difference between both.
Okay, so I have always worked with a coach since I started Kettlebell Sport. He's not always necessarily at the gym with me when I'm training. He might send me the workout. Most of the days he's there, but some days he's not. But when he's there, I have the advantage that he can look at me and give me tips and tell me, oh, make this change. One thing that we noticed recently, for example, in my everyday life, I do not use any shoes with a heel or a lift. I only use barefoot shoes.
Okay.
And for kettlebell, when I first started, I had to fight with myself to kind of allow myself to with the lifters for Kettlebell Sport, because it was against what I believe was the best for my body. So I've been training and competing with these shoes, and for my last competition and about the last, I will say, 8 weeks, I started training with barefoot shoes. And that's something that he saw me one day and he thought, I see you much more stable with the shoes compared to the other ones. And that's when we started making the change. If he hadn't seen me, I don't know if I will have started experimenting with that, right? But the times I don't work out with him, for example, when I'm on vacation, he'll send me the workout and I'll do it on my own. But I wouldn't know how to proceed. After every competition, we start a new training cycle. He's the one that makes me the recommendations and tells me how to proceed with the training.
That's the importance of the coach to have, and he can only see you because you cannot see yourself when you are in frame. So important, coach is very important.
I mean, if you're by yourself, you can always take videos of yourself. If you can look at yourself and see if you can identify. I can always identify things that he points out to me, like he's saying, oh, you're doing this extra movement in your hip, and it takes me a long time for me to visually see it. Other people might pick it up sooner. So you can always, if you're training by yourself, there's some forums, some Facebook groups that you could upload your videos and ask for some feedback as well.
Yes, that's nice. Wow. Now you've been doing kettlebells for 3 years. How is that transit in your family, like your children, maybe your husband, or maybe your close family members? What are they saying about it? What is this, Cintia? What is happening every time you're lifting these kettlebells? You're addicted to it. How is their feedback, or are they also into kettlebells?
No, they haven't gotten into kettlebells. My daughter will sometimes lift it, and I think she has a lot of potential, but she's not interested. She's 12 right now.
Okay.
But just by looking at me, she's been able to imitate me and do some snatches with the 6 kilogram, 8 kilogram.
Okay.
I think they're proud of me. They see how much I advanced. My kids and my husband went to see me at the World Championships this year in Hungary. That was live stream, so I had a lot of family in Argentina watching as well. So everybody was,
Wow, that's nice. Wow, cool. Great. So you've been lifting for 3 years. You started with 8 kg. Now you are in 16. So I would want to know what are your best lifts with the 16 kilos? One second, do you play marathon, which is a 30-minute event or probably 60-minute event? If you have done that, probably numbers on that as well. So if you can just highlight on it.
Yeah. So I have only competed in biathlon or snatch only. I've
Okay.
never done marathon. Sometimes in training, I have done some 30-minute sets, but in snatch, we do, for example, 7 snatches, and then you hold your arm the next minute, but I've never done marathon competition. For snatch, I actually had I beat what I did in the World Championships in the All-American competition I went in Atlantic City earlier this month. So I did 140 snatches with a 16 kilogram.
Wow.
I also competed just for fun. I did a 5-minute jerk set with 12 kilograms, and I did I think it was 60. Yeah, I did 62 jerks. And if you compare it to 1 year ago, I had competed in Chicago with 12 kilograms, and I had done 64 jerks in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So it was a big improvement in 1 year. I basically did the same amount in half the time.
Okay. Have you tried OALC?
No, I haven't. I've gone to a few workshops that we played around with it, but I don't do it in my training or.
No. In the competition, 1 hour long cycle, have you tried?
No, I had never tried it.
No.
But I haven't trained it either. I've only done it in a few workshops.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So nice to interact with Cintia. And Indian lifters are getting trained for this Asian competition now, which is happening in December. So any message to them? Maybe your experience you want to share with them in past 3-4 years, whatever experience you have had when it comes to kettlebell sport, if you can just share the experience with them.
I will say that age is not an impediment. You can start kettlebell sport at any age. You just have to, take the time to train, make time for it, make it a priority in your life. For example, when I first started with kettlebell sport, I went on vacation and I found a coach to train while I was on vacation. So I never stopped training, even when I was on the road. And I think that's important. It just becomes part of your life.
Yes. Cool. Great. Thank you, Cintia, very much for your time. And I'm sure this podcast, when it is live for everyone, they'll get a lot of information and inspiration from it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.